Healing was the warm-up. This is the main fucking event. Welcome to Go Regulate Yourself, the unapologetic, unfiltered love letter you didn't know you needed. This is where mental health meets real life, where growth gets gritty, and where we stop pretending healing makes us saints. Think of it like therapy with tequila shots and a side of tough love. In this space, we're learning how to take responsibility for our shit, face the chaos of life, and become the best version of who we are. So if you're ready for your weekly "what the fuck am I doing" moment, let's dive in. Hi, Rick babes. Welcome back to another episode of the Go Regulate Yourself podcast. My name is Brianne. I am your host, and today I am joining you from Bali. Now, if you have been following along on social media or listening to the last few episodes of the podcast, you will know that I have been traveling for the last 6 weeks. My husband and I have been touring around some countries in Asia, starting in Thailand, then in Laos, and in the last 24 hours, we just made the transition here to Ubud, Bali, which we recently went to back in 2022. And I got to tell you, it feels so good to be back here. There's some kind of portal of energy that feels like a really strong pull for us. It feels like home here. There's some very nice creature comforts that we experience in this area. A lot of people are very health oriented here, so it's very easy to find clean products and good food and great accommodations. And of course, it's very, very cheap compared to back in Canada. So for us, this next month is going to be quite enjoyable. We are staying here in one spot, going to relax and chill out before we return home. And I am so in love with our Airbnb that we're in right now. I'm actually recording in the second bedroom, which is now set up as my she shed or zen den for the next month ahead. I got all of my things laid out here so I can do my yoga, my meditation, my workstations, of course, recording podcasts, writing, you name it. So I am pumped about that. And if you pop over to social media, I promise that I'm going to have some teasers released in relation to this space, what it looks like, how I've set it up, and all of that goodness. So definitely tune into that. But today I wanted to connect with you and talk with you about something that really flooded through my entire body when I watched a film. And I thought, what an appropriate conversation to have right now with my audience, because this is something that applies directly to life. It really struck a chord in my heart when I watched this film. And I feel like we have a lot to talk about on this subject. So, I want to talk to you today about the movie Momo. Now, this was a movie that was released in 2025, so last year, and it's been in our library inventory basically on the laptop. We downloaded it, we were waiting to watch it, and when we were taking one of our flights from Laos to Bali, we decided, why not? We'll throw it on and watch it now. And I have to say that I was pleasantly surprised by this film. I didn't know what to expect. There was a brief description on it. It's a very fictional fantasy type of film. Kind of gave me a little bit of some Harry Potter energy, but still kind of feeling, I guess, more connected to real time and what is actually happening here on planet Earth today for us human beings going through this human experience. So Momo is a story of an orphan girl who you could say has certain powers or capabilities where when people talk to her, she easily is able to get them to open up and share with her in a really deep way. And so it starts off with this idea of this community is being built and people are very connected and they're talking and they're sharing about their lives and they're very, very happy. And then a company comes in and basically creates a product that is designed for a specific purpose of what they tell people it is for, but in actuality is doing something entirely different. So what this company does is create these bracelets, which the company is called Grace. So they're actually called Gracelets. And they have a color function within them. So when people are doing something in their life that is saving them time, these bracelets glow white. And if they are doing something that is considered a time waster in their life, these bracelets glow red, indicating that they are wasting time and should do something more efficient. Now, the idea of this sounds great, right? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could have something designed in our lives to show us when we are, in fact, wasting time? But what actually happens in the film is a really beautiful description or viewpoint of how this can go catastrophically wrong. And so, what ends up happening is the manufacturers behind this product are actually not human beings. They are energetic properties that are stealing time from individuals. So, they have designed this product to help people believe that they can get more efficient, bank their time, and be able to use that time for something in the future, like a vacation with their family, or if they need sick time or whatever it might be required, they'll have this banked up extra allotted time that they can use for those things. But what they're actually doing with the hours that people are saving and banking is using them themselves to stay alive. So they have these little time inhalers that they put in the flowers of the time that gets released. And if you watch this video or you are going to watch this video, it'll make sense to you, I promise. But they inhale the time and then they are able to stay alive as these energetic beings. So they require this from people in order to still exist. But of course, people are not privy to this except for this young girl, Momo. And so she tries to help people see how these things, these beings, are actually thieves of time and help people open up their eyes to move away from these devices, from these bracelets. And later on, it expands into more products so that they can actually get their lives back. And it's really interesting as you watch this because you see, the first person gets started with a bracelet and then the next person gets started with a bracelet and it starts to spread like wildfire. And eventually, what used to be this big community energy of people talking and sharing and enjoying their lives and having a lot of passion ends up ultimately being very empty streets, things that look almost apocalyptic, where people are really moving through their days in what they would consider to be an efficient use of their time, but in actuality is burning through their time so much quicker. They are unfocused, they are unconnected or disconnected in their lives. They are not enjoying their lives. They are stressed or looking like they haven't slept at all. And by the end of the movie, of course, people wake up, spoiler alert, sorry, people wake up to what is going on and end up moving away from these devices back to how life was before. But one of the lessons that was learned throughout this process is that when you are trying to be efficient sometimes, this can actually be a thief of your time. There are things that we do that we think that we are saving time for, things that we think we are doing on purpose to create something for ourselves in the future, but in actuality are stealing the time that we have available now, resulting in that future not being available to us for one reason or another. And I thought, how applicable is this to our lives right now? If you just take a moment to think about what you spend your 24 hours in a day doing. When's the last time that you sat down and reviewed what the last 24 hours held for you? And when's the last time that you thought about the amount of joy, the amount of peace, the amount of presence, the amount of connectedness that this brought to you in your life? When was the last time that you actually looked at this from a grand but direct perspective? Chances are, for a lot of us, we probably haven't assessed our time in this way. We are doing a lot of things in our day to day right now, thinking it's going to give us something in the future, Like an easy example is working really hard, that hustle and that grind, that force in our career or our business. We're taking on all of those shifts. The boss asks if we can work overtime and we say yes. We're building this business and it feels like we can't shut off or we can't step away for a break or we can't rest in between the thoughts of what is happening with that business. These type of things we are doing because we think that it's going to give us something really great in the future. It's going to give us freedom. It's going to give us success. It's going to give us money. It's going to give us a legacy, whatever it might be. But in actuality, what that is doing is stealing the time that you have available right now, today. We think that we're eventually going to have this bank of time available to us, that we can do things, we can see the world, we can experience things in a different way. Like, just for a moment, stop yourself and think about how often you've said, when I get this, when I do this, then I will do this other thing. Like, when I lose weight, then I'll wear a bikini and go to the beach more often. Or when I have lots of money in the bank, then we'll take that family vacation. Then I'll take time off more regularly. And this builds and this builds and this builds in a way that we start using this in reference to everything in our lives. We start thinking about things from this perspective of, when I have this, when I do this, when I achieve this, then I will do this other thing. But the problem is, for a lot of us, is the achievement, the doing, the grasping on to the things that we think we need first typically doesn't happen. And if it does happen, sometimes it takes a really long time, which means that the eventual goal of what we're going to enjoy, what we're going to do, the rest that we're going to take, the presence that we're going to have in our lives, all of these things are getting pushed so far into the future as a goalpost that we may not actually ever achieve them. And this is part of where the idea of that law of attraction, that manifestation, that energetic connection piece comes in, because we are consistently putting ourselves into a different position than the thing that we desire the most. That emotion, that feeling, that thing that we want, we think is not possible for us right now in our current circumstances. We're making the choice for ourselves to not have that thing. Not now, not anytime soon, and sometimes not ever in the future. And that's a really scary thought to be having. How much we are allowing things to be thieves of time. Now, when I sit here and I look at my life, and I can give examples to both right now and then also what has been leading up until this point, the years that have led me to where I am now, and the things that I've changed, the decisions that I made, which has ultimately been thieves of my time. For right now, as an easy example, when I consider what the last 6 weeks has looked like for me with traveling and us being abroad and trying to fit in work and nooks and crannies of time, I can see that two big time thieves, two big time wasters for me were, number one, being a people pleaser, a wound that I thought that I had healed a long time ago that apparently I'm still dealing with. I had wrote a little fun piece on my blog for the 30-something Bible recently about this, where it has been paralyzing me in a softer way than it used to, but still enough that I have been procrastinating a lot of stuff, choosing to sit there and stare numbly or to doom scroll, a second big time waster or time thief for me, instead of doing the things that I need to do. And so this people pleasing wasting of energy for me has been solely around the fact that I was getting caught up in the creation process of doing things for other people. Will people like this? Will they want to hear about this? What do they want to know about? And yes, that's still important to me, being in this space, both with my writing and podcasting, to deliver things that my audience wants to hear, that they need to hear. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm not doing these things to please anybody else. I don't have to watch what I say or how I say it because it might upset or it might offend somebody. I'm here to speak my truth, to deliver this energy, to talk about these things. And recognizing this big time thief for myself has changed things for me significantly. I'm starting to step into prioritizing these pieces for myself, doing the writing, doing the podcasting, sending the emails, all the things that I have been putting off. I have now shifted in the last couple of days and started to do something with. Same thing with the doom scrolling and the numbness that I have been succumbing myself to. I've gotten really wrapped up in my phone in the last few weeks, just filling little pockets of time. And I've decided that I'm changing that once again. I'm going back to how things were before this, where I am more present, where I am filling my time with different things that are calling me into this time and space rather than allowing time to pass me by and to push it into the future. And so these two things of this right now energy are just easy examples of time thieves in ways that I have wasted a lot of time over the last few weeks. Prior to this, though, there was a lot of other energies that have followed me throughout the years. When I sit here and I look back and I assess upon that, so many things we can talk about. And as we go through this, I want you to sit here and think for yourself, what are some ways in which I am wasting time for myself? And not wasting time in terms of being present and being connected and playing a board game with your loved ones or resting, taking a break. I need you to wrap your brain around the fact what we're talking about here in terms of thieves of time are the things that are not serving you. The things like joy and presence and connection and taking care of yourself, self development, anything that's going to put you in a better position mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, you name it. Those are things that are not time wasters. Those are not thieves of time. The thieves of time are the people pleasing, the procrastination, the doom scrolling, the overthinking. How many hours do we waste in a day from overthinking, from analyzing things again and again and again, thinking about who might be mad at us and worried about how we said that thing or the email we sent or what we did at that party or what that person that we ran into and met for the first time thought of us upon that first introduction? How often are we overanalyzing and overthinking and therefore habitually wasting time? What about arguing over small and or big things? How much energy, how much time are we pouring into arguments in order to get the last word or to prove a point or to have people understand us? Some other big ones that you might want to consider are things like rushing or hurrying. How often are you moving really fast through your day so you can get more things done? But ultimately, what is this giving you? Because I know that when I rush, when I hurry, not only is my nervous system thrown into a complete tizzy, I also end up making more mistakes. I get really klutzy. It's always when I'm rushing or trying to do things fast that I end up bumping my knee into the bed or end up spilling my cup of tea and have to clean it up. I end up ultimately making way more mistakes when I'm rushing and hurrying, and that is ultimately taking more things away from my time. We can also think about not being present when we are thinking about something else, when we are zoned out of conversation, when we are disassociated and putting ourselves somewhere else. These are things that can ultimately be thieves of our time. They're taking away from the presence, from the connection, from the love. I hate to say it, but also sometimes being efficient can also be a thief of time. When you think that you are so good at checking boxes and getting things done, maybe perhaps in a little bit of that hurrying or rushing energy, but ultimately you think that you're just really efficient at checking this off, checking this off, checking this off, often at the expense of multitasking a lot of times. What you're actually doing is dividing your energy. You may think that you are saving time by doing some things, but you are ultimately losing at life. An example from this that really sticks out for me was in this movie where you can see the progression of the one mom in there. She has a pizza shop, so like a restaurant. And you see in the beginning that orders are stacking up and more things are starting to go out, and her business is getting busier, which appears like it's a good thing. And then slowly over time, less and less people are either coming to the restaurant to eat, and or at the end, it eventually turns into what you can say is almost like a conveyor belt where the food is on there and people are standing up with their plates and they're eating as the conveyor belt and them themselves walk and move. So instead of sitting down to enjoy a meal, instead of being present, instead of allowing your body to be rested and digesting everything, they're inhaling their food in a matter of minutes, walking through this conveyor belt and then walking out the door. And you might think that some of the things that you're doing in your life are efficient, that you're doing really well by multitasking and by adding things onto your plate. And trust me when I say I can be so guilty of this because I think there's a fine line between doing things intentionally and then doing things to the point where it has had the opposite effect. Like, for instance, if you've ever read the books Atomic Habits, a great life-changing book, you learn how to get more out of your time, how to add things in, how to habit stack, as we say. But at what point do these things move from being beneficial to move to being toxic in that way? In what part of our lives do we stop and we look and we say, I'm habit stacking too much. I'm multitasking too much. Every second of every day is accounted for. Every second of every day, I'm doing 2 or 3 things at once, and I haven't actually slowed down or been present with anything that's going on. At what point does that happen? So we have to start to think about these things, not just from the perspective of doing more, because oftentimes the way that we do more is actually by doing less. And so thinking about habit stacking or multitasking or being efficient, this really has shifted for me in terms of my perspective since watching this movie. And I'm starting to assess in which ways am I maybe being too efficient? Am I maybe being too disconnected, too rushed, too fast in what I'm doing? Not just in relation to my nervous system, but in relation to me and my enjoyment of life. There's a big difference, traveling is an easy example. There is a big difference between me going to see a waterfall or going to see a lagoon, or we recently went to an elephant sanctuary. All of these things I made the intentional decision to be present with. To, yes, of course, take some photos and videos, but for the most part, put my phone away and enjoy it. Be there in the moment. Can you imagine if we continued to treat life like a checklist, where I walked into this waterfall or the lagoon or the elephant sanctuary and it was like, click, 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 okay, done, checked it off my box, now off to the next thing. Are you really enjoying what you're seeing and what you're doing? Or are you just checking a fucking box? And this applies to everything in life. Why are you being so efficient? Why are you habit stacking and multitasking so many things in your life? And could this potentially actually be a thief of your time? Because I know when I am the most present, when I am the most connected, when I am the most honed in on the hour that I have in front of me, the second that is in front of me, the more enjoyment, of course, and lust for life I have, but also the more things happen in my favor. The more blessed I am. The more opportunities roll in, the more things align, fall into place, fall out of thin air. I really do think this is the magic to life. And I think that this movie, truthfully, allocated that all to us. And it really can open your eyes towards what is working and what's not working. Other thieves of time could be things like stressing or doing things that you don't want. How often do you do things that you don't want to do? Certain chores around the house that you could find an alternative solution for. Work projects that bring no joy to your life. Social commitments, parties, things that you said yes to attending that you actually have no desire to do. What would life look like if you shifted out of this? If you stopped saying yes and started saying no more often? If you created an abundance of time in your life by just simply removing the things that do not light you up? I'm going to guess that you're going to get way more time out of your calendar. You're going to find way more joy in life. You're going to be a way happier person. And not only are you going to appreciate that, but I'm sure everybody else in your life is going to appreciate that too. I really believe that if we think about things from this perspective and we start thinking about what could potentially be a thief of time, we're going to start doing things a lot differently. And a lot more goodness, a lot more manifestation, a lot more blessings are going to be happening for us in our lives because we are tapped in, turned on, tuned in, as Abraham Hicks would say, to life, and ultimately in alignment with the things that we most deeply desire. And I promise you, speaking as somebody who had a company crash that I used to be so obsessed with, that I would work crazy long hours, hustle and grind, and do all of the things that were incredible wastes of time, that when I was in that energy, everything went wrong, things were so much more difficult, I was sick and stressed, and the company ultimately ended up failing. And what I'm learning now with the things that I'm doing differently is that the more in alignment I am, the more that I rest, the more that I play, the more that I have fun, the more that I enjoy my fucking life, the better things are ultimately for me. The more things work out for me in my favor. And I trust that it will be the same for you. And so at the end of today's episode, I want to leave you with this. Ask yourself, what are the thieves of joy, the thieves of presence, the thieves of connection, the thieves of time right now in my life? And are the things that I'm doing intentional, purposeful? Do they bring me life? Do they feel good to me? Or perhaps do I need to make some changes? And I promise you, if you do watch this movie, or if you have already watched it, I hope that you are vibing and understanding exactly what I'm saying. But either way, I do trust that you are going to understand this to such a deep level and that it is going to hit you in such a deep way like it did to me. I really am looking at all of life differently just from this. And I would love to connect with you either down below in the comments or on social media and hear what this stirred up for you inside. What are some things that you are looking at a little bit differently in your life now because of this? And if you watch the movie, what it brings up for you. So with that, I am wishing you a fabulous rest of your day. I will catch you in the next episode. Take care. Mwah. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Go Regulate Yourself podcast. If you felt called out in the best way, I would be so honored if you drop below and leave a review or share this with a friend who needs to hear it too. And remember, regulate yourself before you wreck yourself. I'll catch you in the next episode. Mwah.